million scenarios where there's gradations of the truth that could have sent it off in another direction.
Maybe, but
I'm just saying all of this to just, again, be the devil's advocate.
Yeah,
I agree, but
I think it is, because for one thing, I mean, there are lots of murders in New York City, and so why did they pick this particular one to say, oh, it's all locked from the inside? When they could have locked mysteries all over New York. There's probably all kinds of dead bodies found in apartments that are locked. So. But
it could have been a situation where, I mean, we see this today, where it is a what is the term? It's a firework case. Is it Fink? He is an immigrant, and suddenly there's an immigrant push for, people who are like, we're immigrants, and we are not getting the protection we need and the service we deserve. Uh-huh. We see this today, and what the hell? And suddenly he is just, it's that gunpowder story. Yeah, the powder keg. Thank you. It's the powder keg story, and so it gets launched and then drops immediately after that. But all we're left with is those hot details, and that's it.
So you're saying that I'm trying to figure out your reasoning here. So he was a Polish immigrant. The Polish-American community got up in arms, and then so the police...
because the Irish-American cops didn't give a rip, and so it's inflammatory, it gets in the papers, but only certain details get saved through the generations.
Or the cops were trying to cover their butts, maybe didn't do as good a job. Again, this is total speculation.
I think you guys are thinking this over a little too hard.
I think we're thinking this through the current modern, unfortunate media lens.
Well, no, I think I agree. But again, I'm going to just reiterate again. I'm just kind of, I'm just saying it to voice it.
This is possible, but not likely.
Unlikely.
But,
Exactly.
I don't think that's what happened.
Yeah. But it is possible that, it is vaguely possible that cops could have said, after the fact, well, here's all the reasons that we couldn't really figure out what was going on. It's just a locked door mystery. It's not a murder mystery. And old-timey.
Well, no, I mean,
but again,
and that's
highly unlikely.
It is highly unlikely because a lot of murders didn't get solved in those days, or these days either.
These days either. So that's why we have a show.
Yeah. And the police actually, considering the amount of trouble they went to in this particular case, it would be awfully dumb to just say, hey, did anybody ever ask that kid if maybe it wasn't really locked from the inside? And after they've torn the place apart, stuff. But so that's one reason I think it probably did happen. But also
we've got a whole bunch of other theories, though.
Well, no, I wanted to say one other thing about this. Is that the New York police commissioner at the time, his name was Edward Mulrooney, who gave an interview on the radio. This is pre-TV. So he did a radio interview about 2 years after the murder and said that he talked about 3 cases, and this was one of them. He said he considered it insoluble and one of the greatest mysteries of his police career, of the NYPD. And since there are probably a lot of unsolved murders, I'm thinking that happened in New York during his tenure. I'm thinking the part about it that was insoluble was the locked room aspect of the case.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking he probably had access to the files, the actual files, and not whatever was reported in the press, because that always gets distorted.
Yeah.
Totally. And mistakes are always made.
Yeah.
So that's another reason I think this is really, truly an honest-to-God locked door mystery.
I totally agree.
Not just a screw-up. Yeah.
No, sorry. We do that thing sometimes where we just all feel like we have to argue the counterpoint, but I totally agree.
Yeah. I think it happened. Yeah. And so we got a mystery. Okay, our next theory is suicide. He actually did commit suicide. But, of course, there's a problem with that. No gun. But the kid was alone in the room for a few moments. Maybe the gun was just laying there on the floor. And
Guns are valuable.
And he pocketed it?
And the kid grabs the gun and sticks it in his pocket. And so that's possible. Of course, you think the police would have grilled him pretty hard and actually wrung the truth out of him, because
unless he squirmed away in the press of people that were right there outside the door.
Oh, and just vanished and they never saw the kid again.
Yeah.
It's possible.
That happens.
Handed it to one of his newsy friends.
I don't think he would have handed it to one of his newsy friends. I think he would have just, sold it to one of the gang members, local gang. But it's possible. I'm pretty sure they probably tracked the kid down and grilled him pretty good about stuff like the lock and everything else. And did you take the gun? Because it must have occurred to somebody that perhaps the kid did take the gun.
I feel like there are bigger problems than just the missing gun.
You mean like the fact that he ended his life while ironing?
Yeah.
Because everybody loves ironing so much.
Exactly. So his iron is on. Is that how you want to end your life? Ironing?
I mean, it's not, but I've
actually kind of wanted to end my life because of ironing.
I like ironing.
You're weird.
Do you really?
Yeah, I do. I really do. I think there's something really sad.
Listen, I'll bring some shirts next week.
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
No, I mean, it's kind of like picking like a scab or something. There's just something super satisfying about like seeing all those wrinkles and just like whoosh, and they're all gone. But
that's why you're covered in scars.
I'm also very good.
Scabs and ironing them out.
I'm also just good at ironing, so it doesn't really matter. But we've talked about this before a lot of times with the theory of suicide, and that suicide is oftentimes not a rational thing, right? The bigger problem that I have is not the like iron being on or anything like that. It's the hole in the hand.
Well, yeah, the hole in the hand and
the
shooting
two
yourself
shots
in the chest and all that stuff. Yeah,
that's the bigger problem I have with it.
Well, suicides sometimes do shoot themselves more than once. I mean, it has happened.
Yeah,
people shot themselves a couple of times,
but oftentimes not like in the hand.
Yeah,
and then again, as we talked about a little bit earlier, I feel like. Again, with no statistics to back this up, I just feel like people more often shoot themselves in the head.
Oh, yeah, much more often. I mean, yeah.
But it's a definitive shot.
Yeah.
You're much more likely to expire from a head wound than you are some kind of general chest wound.
And you're much more likely to expire instantly rather than, take time to a while to bleed out.
And remember that this is 1929, so the kind of gun that he would have likely used would not have been some kind of semi-automatic, but something that had a very exposed trigger. And like we talked about before, if he has to use his thumb,
it would have been a revolver.
Right. So if he's got to use his thumb to pull the trigger, your hand, the web of your hand, if not your pointer finger, will get up underneath the hammer and get caught. And so there's usually obvious signs of damage to your hand from using it backwards. It tends to catch and tear flesh. So he should have shown, if the the examiner at the time had been looking for that, was it, that's weird, there's some square notches out of his pointer finger. Odd. He must have done that with an iron.
Yeah. That's possible too. Yeah, definitely it's an awkward position to shoot a gun in. I mean, it's definitely the gun's going to, of course, could have been some wimpy little 32 that didn't recoil very much too. I don't know.
Well, mostly it's just that trigger, that hammer action.
Coming down.
I'm flailing my hand at my head. It's the hammer action that is usually what catches the webbing of your hand or people's forefingers, especially when they're using a gun backwards. Because they're holding it at a weird angle because, of course, there's a slope to the handle.
I never shot a gun backwards. They taught me that in my NRA safety class when I was a little kid.
If you ever held one backwards, though, you can see very easily how it would happen.
Well, and here's another question, is they made pretty specific note of the gunpowder burns on his hands, but none on his chest. And you would assume that if he had point blank shot himself,
he would have put
that
it
they
to
would,
his chest.
and they would have also mentioned likely.
There should have been powder burns on his chest
as well.
And while he may have done one through the hand, the odds of him shooting himself twice through the same spot in the hand is astronomical.
And why would you do that? It's like, okay, that didn't work. I'll move my hand.
And that really hurt a lot.
And match it perfectly with the hole.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think so.
There's too many ifs.
There's a lot of variables.
Yeah, no, there are.
This is not an Occam's razor.
Yeah, no, I don't think that suicide is a good one. Another theory, this is another popular one, is that he was shot in the hallway and ran inside and through the bolts.
I personally have always believed this was the answer to the story.
It could be. I
hate this. I hate this theory.
This is like
because it's unsatisfying, but it's logical.
I don't know if it is.
It does make some sense, but it was the same thing with Hugues de la Plaza. I mean, even though the police concluded that he must have committed suicide, there was blood on the steps outside his apartment, so he was obviously stabbed outside and then ran inside and locked the door.
But was there blood outside of this apartment?
In this case, no. There was no blood. Shot 3 times, or at least twice.
But this is my problem with this portion of the story, and a lot of this story, is that I don't know if the details were recorded. That was there a blood trail outside? Because some of the reporting says, well, if he was wearing heavy clothing, which we don't know what he was wearing.
Yeah.
So let's just say he's got 4 wool shirts on and a big trench coat. That would soak up the blood while he was falling back into his apartment.
Yeah.
But we don't know that for sure, and so it's hard to say. I personally feel like it makes the most sense that a guy it's the panic room scenario. We've seen this in a lot of movies where, oh God, shut the latch and then realize that you've been shot and then fall down dead, but nobody can get you because you're already dead.
Yeah.
So which of his hands was shot?
The left one.
Okay, well that I guess is less helpful, but
yeah.
But the one thing I will say is that, like, chest wounds aside, he had a hole in his hand that was shot and bleeding, right? So if he's making his way back into his apartment, he's closing and locking the door, there's going to be blood on the door in some capacity.
If it's his left hand and he is right-handed, that is not the case.
You've never in your life only walked in with your right hand, closed the door, and locked everything. Have you?
I do it all the time. I push the door close.
And then you lock everything?
Then I throw the bolts.
I feel like there would be some sort of blood
I'm a
situation.
lazy jerk, and I shut the door with my shoulder a lot, or I push it with my foot when I go in so that I can reach up and use my free hand to grab it. So, I'm miming this, and people can't see this, but I've got my hand on my chest, and it's my left hand, which is now my bleeding hand, which is now bleeding into my spongy clothing, which is absorbing all of the blood for me very conveniently.
I feel like at the end of the day, there's some blood something. Even if it's blood spatter.
Somewhere.
There should have been blood, and also
I'm not going to disagree with that.
I have a hard time believing that he got shot in one hand and didn't reach over with his other hand and grab the wounded hand and then get blood on it.
He could have armpitted it, like I'm doing here, where he sticks it in his armpit and squeezes, so now his right hand is still free to operate things.
But then here's the follow-up question to that is your theory that he was doing some ironing in the house, went out into the hallway, got shot, came back in? Or how otherwise do you explain
I'm not answering why he left his apartment, because I cannot answer that. The only thing that I'm trying to answer, just like everybody else, is how did he get into his apartment and be shot fatally once in the hand and twice in the chest, and we can't figure it out. And so my only thing is that I've always thought, well, he did the armpit action, one hand up under the armpit, squeezed, ran in, slammed the door, locked the bolts, fell down, and died.
Yeah. But
that's all I got.
Yeah, I know, that's it. But of course, but as far as
I will now be quiet for the next 20 minutes.
Okay, good. As far as the
Joe,
four,
you weren't supposed to say good.
Yeah. No, sorry. No, I didn't mean that at all. No, I mean. But as far as the multi-layers, I don't think he was wearing multiple layers because he was inside ironing. So you're not going to, So I don't think that. It's conceivable that he got punctured by some measly little 32 bullets, and there was not a lot of blood. It seems unlikely, especially with the hand wound.
Especially with the hand wound, and also I feel like Emmy pronouncements are pretty. I mean, I feel like I'm willing to trust the fact if they say, like, that would have been fatal immediately. Like,
that is the thing. They did say that.
Probably was. But even more than that, if your theory is, like, armpit hand, there was a it was a pretty good description of the crime scene. You would think they would have said also there was all this blood all over his other hand, his arm, his armpit, whatever.
But the other but my counter to that is in some of the information that Joe shared with us ahead of the script was the fact that there are Emmy accounts where people have said that person should have died instantly. And instead, they wandered around for half an hour to an hour alive before keeling over dead.
That is typically head wounds, though. I mean, if you get shot through the heart, you're not going to wander around.
But he wasn't shot through the heart, as near as I can tell. He was shot in the chest near the heart, and they said that should have killed him instantly.
That's near the heart and the heart are pretty.
Yeah.
As long as you rupture some vital stuff.
There's a lot of material between your exterior and your interior and your rib cage and your heart, and things can go very, very close and cause bleeds that are slower bleeds. I'm not going to say they're slow, but they're slower.
I thought you were going to be quiet for the next 20 minutes.
Oh, you're right. I'll be quiet till the next 3. How's that?
Great.
Yeah, I'm only
2 minutes from now.
Yeah, I'm only assuming that he got shot through the heart or through, maybe, one of the arteries going into the heart or out of the heart, I should say, or something like that.
Well,
because I mean, there's no other organ in your body that's going to cause you to instantly die.
Yeah.
If you get shot through it. Even your lung. You get shot through your lung. You'll still live for a little while.
You can have a totally collapsed lung and be fine.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, not fine.
People have lived for a long time
I have
that
a
way.
friend who joined the military with a lung that collapsed spontaneously, and they were like, yeah, you're fit for duty. No problem.
Well, that says something different.
Army doctors, yeah.
But he was able to function with just one lung sometimes, and that was fine for him.
Yeah, and so he must have found some damage to the heart that would have been instantly fatal for him to say something like that.
But I guess more than that,
yeah.
I just don't. There's not enough evidence exterior to. I mean, there's no real evidence interior to the apartment to say what happened, but I just feel like there's very little exterior evidence as well.
It seems like there should have been some blood, at least from the hand wound. I mean, because
like
when I cut myself on the hand, I bleed pretty profusely from a small cut.
Hands bleed a lot.
Oh, they really do. There's a lot of veins.
Typically, that's because you're flailing it around and screaming about it.
Well, but even like a paper cut, I mean, they don't bleed like they're not throwing blood everywhere.
They're big gushers.
But they are. They just like sit there and they bleed forever, and you're like, that's like 3 layers of skin. How are you doing that? But it does. It just bleeds and bleeds and bleeds. And because again, there's a lot of veins and stuff that you need in there. So it just seems like there would have been more evidence. But again,
there should have been a blood trail. If he ran inside, there should have been a blood trail from the door to wherever they found his body.
Right.
Because I don't think they found him right next to the door.
That's the bigger part for me, because I am willing to say if somebody shot him in the hall, he ran inside, locked himself in, you would go, better clean this blood up real quick.
Yeah,
right. Okay, but there's just a lot
missing. Can we try and settle on a description of something here that before we go into the next theory or any of the following theories, which is the lady that heard the scuffle and ran outside and got a cop?
Yeah.
Do we think that was 5 minutes? Do we think she went and got a drink at the local pub and came back and got a constable, and so it's 30 minutes?
Yeah.
Do we have any sense of...
We don't know how long it took. I mean, I'm assuming it was not long.
I think it was a ran outside and yelled.
There was a cop like...
I need a...
Yeah, a guy in a corner. Like, that's my thought too, but this is, again, a variable that I feel changes the story dramatically.
Absolutely.
And I never have a clear, confident answer.
Yeah, I don't know either.
It's possible she shot him in the hallway, cleaned up, and then went out for the cop.
That lady went and had a cigarette. She was cool as a cucumber. Went, somebody killed that man.
The only thing that's tricky for me, again, is the iron thing. Is even if it was, again, I've done some Googling, and there is this gas-powered situation that could have still been hot, but even not, it is my impression that it was still hot.
Yeah.
Or at least warm
it was
when
hot.
they came.
He had turned it on to do some ironing.
Right. Yeah. But even if it was this kind of sits on a fire, gets hot, you know, pressing, old-timey iron, my impression was that it was still warm.
Yeah, it was. So
and
he was doing some ironing,
But they also, those things don't retain heat, but 15 minutes at the max.
Yeah. Okay.
At the max, it's like warming a pot.
For going forward, I guess we're kind of all in agreement that there is a 15-minute lag between the incident and the police showing up.
And actually finding the kid and getting the kid through the transom and all that stuff. Yeah,
I feel like we need to establish that, because otherwise I'm going to keep saying, but what if?
Yeah.
And
I think 15 minutes is like the most time that could have elapsed in my mind.
So it was fairly recent. There were a lot of beat cops walking around in those days.
Yeah.
And so he was, he might have just been walking right past the front door. I don't know. A variant on our theory. We're still on that he was shot in the hallway and ran inside.
Okay.
A variant is there was a scuffle. He gets shot in the hand. Then he runs inside and bolts the door. There's still a problem with that, of course. But then the gunman went and got a chair or something and stood on it and shot him through the transom. Again, same problem. There's the bullet angles. Where did the chair come from that he stood on?
Where did the chair go to?
Yeah, all that stuff. So but people have theorized on that one quite a bit.
New theory. He was so paranoid. He was making people look through the transom window to prove to them that he knew them.
Then that would prove that he was an idiot for leaving it unlatched.
So he was standing up, talking to somebody, said, I don't know you, I'm not letting you in. And they said, oh yeah, I have a gun. And he goes, no. And they shoot him in the hand, shoot him twice in the chest. He falls off of the stool that he was standing on. They take their stuff and like run away. The little boy who crawls through lands on the stool and moves it to open the door and just